As federal agencies turn to cloud infrastructure as a service, they may find they require professional services to help migrate applications into the cloud, want to outsource management of the infrastructure or applications, or need a managed service provider that will assist them in making secure, efficient transition to cloud-native DevOps-style operations. Rob Grote of Smartronix and Mark Fox of Amazon Web Services talk about the value their long partnership offers to the federal government. Next on NITAAC Solution Showcase. Engaging our industry stakeholders to inform the U.S. federal government on today's most innovative IT solutions. NITAAC proudly presents Solution Showcase. Welcome to another NITAAC Solution Showcase, this time with Mark Fox of Amazon Web Services Federal and Rob Grote with Smartronix. And Rob, let's start with you. We want to talk about your relationship with Amazon Web Services, where it's been and where it's going, particularly because you were named in a recent Gartner paper as a managed service provider.
Right, thank you, Todd. We have a long-standing relationship with AWS. It's going on 8 years now, kind of hard to believe. In 2009, we were asked to build the recovery.gov website. We had a very short timeline to be able to deploy that. It was supposed to track the $757 billion of recovery funding. And we proposed a fairly innovative solution to the government. We said, we think the only way that you can meet this aggressive timeline for, such a massive scale web property is to immediately deploy the test and dev environments on AWS. We ended up winning that contract in July of 2009 and delivered the capability in October of that same month. And the only way we could have done that really was the use of public cloud technologies. That relationship has grown quite a bit since then. We've deployed several other very large-scale web properties running on AWS, Treasury.gov, ConsumerFinance.gov, Making Home Affordable, My Money. If you look across the space, we probably have close to 50 web properties running on AWS to date, including doing some pretty innovative work with the Department of Defense under the NITAAC CIOSP3 vehicle, and then really kind of looking at the market and not just helping government transform and securely use cloud services, but really looking at providing a complete solution where we could deliver something optimally onto the cloud and have that ability to do the managed services side of that. And that was part of the Gartner reference, is that we were one of 5 companies that were profiled as an AWS managed service provider. And I think you're gonna see more of that type of capability required in the market as more government organizations are looking at effectively consuming AWS services. They're gonna want the expertise of the partner community working closely with AWS to help manage those environments. One of our key differentiators is that if you look at us as a managed service provider, we also provide managed security services, and that's really kind of a central component of things that differentiate Smartronix in the marketplace. We've been through the FedRAMP 3PAO audit for our cloud assured managed services, and that's really going to jumpstart and facilitate government organizations to be able to deploy workloads into the cloud and then have a FedRAMP accredited capability to manage and monitor those workloads that are running in AWS.
Cloud and associated services represent a way for the federal government to modernize. One of the challenges, of course, is the certifications that you talked about. And Mark, you've been working aggressively to kind of knock those down and provide a way for federal agencies, both military and civilian, to move to the cloud in meaningful ways.
Correct, yeah. So the process of what we have to do in the cloud world on the accreditation side starts with FedRAMP. That's across the board for all of our federal customers. And if you think of this almost as a multi-layered cake, FedRAMP would be the baseline for the cloud service providers, CSPs, to get through first, and typically that's been at the FedRAMP moderate level. From there, the world that I come from, operating primarily in DoD says that's a good baseline, but we are going to add some additional controls, what is referred to affectionately as FedRAMP Plus. So it goes a little bit higher up towards, ultimately, the end customer goal would be to get their application through a full authority to operate, or ATO. But the level of responsibility in that total package, in that cake, if you want to think of it that way, is Amazon may take care of that first layer. Typically, the controls around the infrastructure itself, a lot of the physical security controls around that. But there is a line of demarcation at which point the customer is responsible for taking on the controls to ultimately meet everything that's necessary to get a full ATO. What Rob's referring to is that those things that are above that line of demarcation that we typically do not do. And the customer at times in a cloud world is challenged to really understand how to do things in a cloud environment, where Smartronix as a managed service provider can then come into that customer, in some cases maybe take care of what I would say is sort of the second tier of the cake. Those things that, how do I configure an AWS? How do I configure a CSP? How do I do continuous monitoring in there? How do I do those things that may be new and difficult for them? And then at the top of it, the customer may take care of the final pieces, which is just to administer the application and make sure that their data is in there properly. So in a lot of cases, it's not a two-tiered cake where it's the cloud provider and then the end customer mission owner. The optimal model, what we're seeing now roll out in this MSP model, is that there's a CSP at the first tier, there is an MSP, and then there's the end customer. And there's some overlapping at each of those three layers, but that's what we're seeing now. The successful customers are operating under this model of an MSP.
And confidence,
Sure.
We'll get to that. Confidence comes from experience. And Rob, you've had such amazing stories in terms of both the commercial clients that you've been able to migrate to the cloud, as well as in the federal space. Share with us some of those stories anecdotally.
Sure, it really has been kind of a virtuous cycle. When you look at the that intermediary piece between the CSP and the customer's application, we've been able to take things that we've done in DoD and the federal government and implement them with large-scale financial service providers and healthcare organizations. We've also been able to take some of those automated compliance mechanisms, some of those more advanced technologies, and infuse them with some of our federal and DoD customers. And I think that that virtuous cycle is really kind of key, and I think that's what AWS is looking for from their partners, is how do you take the innovation that you can do in a business model and provide that same speed of business to government. And that's one of the main reasons why we created our Cloud Assured Managed Services, that MSP capability, is that we saw a gap. We saw that a lot of enterprises or federal agencies or customers struggle with that initial adoption of not just moving their workloads into the cloud, but optimally configuring and managing their workloads so they can do a lot more than they can do in an on-premises infrastructure. And if you can build those foundational capabilities to provide that intermediary layer, you can start to jumpstart multiple workloads moving into the cloud environment. It's not just taking proof of concepts here and there, or taking pilot applications and going through a lift and shift kind of a design pattern. It really is building your core foundational capabilities, treating the cloud as a primary data center consideration, and really working on, providing that layer of capabilities that then you can just start to roll on more and more capabilities very rapidly.
Mark, I want to just turn to you. As you look at the federal marketplace and you see partners like Smartronix helping to engage, tell me what the largest challenge is for Amazon to really be mainstreamed in this overall IT modernization effort that the federal government is trying to accomplish.
I think the biggest comment is that this is fairly disruptive. Everything from the semantics of what things are called in the cloud is new. People that operate what is the existing IT environments are trying to determine what is my role. People that maintain and manage current data centers in the federal government, the contractors that are in there, the hardware and software providers. It's disruptive across the board. So there's a significant amount of education that has to go in place, not only to say this is what cloud is, this is what cloud is not, but then also to help people understand what is their role in this new modern IT world of which cloud enables. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is really just educating people, getting through the initial baseline of people to understand that my role, my job doesn't necessarily go away. I may have to learn some new technologies. I may have to learn some new words, something that I called, an instance before. I may call something different today. virtual machine versus an instance, that sort of thing. So some of it's language, and then again, getting people to understand that cloud enables you to do more, to do faster, that this just isn't an opportunity to do away with people in some cases, but it really provides people with an opportunity to make some career moves and changes. And one of the things that's been interesting here, again, as cloud becomes more prevalent, gets into cloud accreditation, so which Rob's group's very familiar with. A significant part of their business has cloud accreditations, in some cases multiple CSP accreditations as well. And those accreditations, what we're now seeing in the market, are providing people an opportunity, some of the most highest paid jobs out there, to do cloud DevOps, cloud solutions architecture. So there is an opportunity here not just for folks to adopt the cloud, but there's an opportunity for folks to evolve and to pick up some new job opportunities as well to support cloud.
One more time for Rob, opportunities ahead for this partnership.
Well, one of the things that's been great working with AWS is the pace of innovation. They release new capabilities and new features at an unbelievable rate. Dozens of new features and capabilities, sometimes in a month. That's really interesting in that they're looking so far ahead into the market in terms of what are the new types of capabilities that you can do in a very elastic manner. They're adding new regions, they're adding new capabilities, they're adding new services and new offerings. The things that we're trying to focus on is looking at what are the requirements from a business standpoint for being able to maybe analyze data better, for maybe being able to look at Internet of Things. And then what can we do on the backside to really help those customers understand how to more efficiently tune and operate those environments and manage those environments. One of the biggest things that we see on the market is that enterprises, particularly federal governments and the very regulatory and compliance driven enterprises, are looking at security as probably the main reason to go to the cloud. It's not that barrier that it used to be where people were trying to figure out which workloads could I put into the cloud. Instead, they're really looking at the primitives that cloud service providers like AWS are providing to manage service providers like ourselves, give us an ability to automate compliance, automate security, and manage infrastructure at scale like you're not able to do in an on-premise infrastructure. We're very excited about that, and we think that that's one of the main drivers for these organizations moving to the cloud successfully.
Key factors for the federal government moving to the cloud for an IT modernization strategy. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Rob Grote with Smartronix and Mark Fox with Amazon Web Services. Thank you for joining us for another Solution Showcase.